Last year, A.J. Reister was an underdog as the new guy on Before the Kickoff, but the boys quickly realized he was not a rookie to mess with. This year, the stakes are higher. But one thing stays the same. A.J. is the predictions champion.
Who's the champ now?
We're playing a very hostile environment. The Big Ten's full of a lot of tough venues to go to, and certainly Columbus fits that bill. So, against that backdrop, a big challenge in front of us right now.
Colin Kirk-Ferentz said it right there. The Hawkeyes are in for a battle this weekend as they head up to Columbus to take on the third-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes in one of the toughest places to play in the nation.
Yeah, Brady, and if I've learned anything with being from Ohio, those fans get real rowdy up in the shoe.
That's right, Colin. But hello, everyone. Welcome to Before the Kickoff, the Daily Iowans weekly pregame show and your #1 source for Hawkeye sports. I'm Brady Barron.
And I'm Colin Carruthers. We're to break down everything you need to know before the kickoff.
Today, we're going to learn a little bit about the history between these two teams, see how the Hawks are preparing for Ohio State, and of course, give our predictions for this weekend's game.
Yeah, but first, Brady, let's send it straight to the newsroom with DITV's Joel Keller, who has a little bit on how the Hawkeyes feel after the bye week.
Thanks, guys. With no game last week, the Hawkeyes were able to get some much-needed recovery time after their first road trip of the season.
Recovering your body, stand off your feet just a little bit more, and recovery is a huge factor. So I definitely feel a lot fresher, I would say.
Kind of good to give your body a rest just from 4 weeks of playing football, and then coming back this week, feeling healthy, get your legs back underneath you.
I feel great now. I feel 100%, so I'm ready to go.
Did I just hear that right? Caleb Johnson is 100%? That's a scary thing considering Johnson so far this season has been one of the best players in the league. Johnson has 685 yards and 9 touchdowns already, including a massive performance in his last game against Minnesota, where he had over 200 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. The Hawkeyes' pill carrier led the NCAA in rushing after that performance 2 weeks ago, but Boise State's Ashton Jeanty grabbed the lead back with over 250 rushing yards last week during Johnson's bye.
That man's crazy. 260, 4 TDs, that's crazy, bro. But me and him competing back and forth, and I like it. So keep going. So
Now it's your turn?
It's my turn now.
The Hawkeyes did not get to lay around and watch football from the couch like we do. They had intensive practices all week, including scrimmages and 2-minute drills at the end of the week.
When you're not really focusing on an opponent as much at the beginning of the week, you're really able to take the time to, correct what you're doing on the field. And I think, that was good for us. And I definitely do think we got better last week.
It's safe to say the players used this bye week to work on putting together a full game against the toughest opponent they have had to see this year. We'll go back to Brady and Colin to learn more about this great matchup we have in store this weekend.
Great stuff there. Thank you, Joel. Now, Colin, I know the Hawkeyes are facing Ohio State, and the rivalry between these two teams isn't quite as rich as Iowa's with Minnesota.
Yeah, Brady, no trophy game on the line this week, but that's not to say there's not a little bit of history between these two schools.
Speaking of history, Colin, let's send it out to DITV's resident sports historian, Elise Gann, with the storied history between these two institutions.
Thanks, guys. With the bye week in the way, it's been a little while since the last lesson, so let me dust off my glasses real quickly. All right, there we go. Let's get straight into it. This week, we all know Iowa has a tough match against the Ohio State University, and this seems to be a common theme for the Hawks when facing the Buckeyes. The two teams last met in 2022 in what was, to put it quite simply, an absolute blowout. On their home turf, the Buckeyes dominated the Hawkeyes right out the gate, throwing an interception on the first drive of the game and setting the tone for their landslide 54-10 win. CJ Stroud, now the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans and my fantasy football team, threw for 286 yards and 4 second-half touchdowns, reading the Hawkeye defense like a book. Luckily for the Hawks, they will not have to face CJ tomorrow, but they will face an unfamiliar Ohio State roster. Majority of the team the Hawkeyes face in 2022 has changed with new additions and new skills, but Iowa's roster, for the most part, has stayed put, potentially giving the Buckeyes more of the upper hand. Players such as Caleb Johnson, Luke Lachey, Quinn Schulte, and LaShawn Williams all suffered the loss together, giving Ohio State a front-row seat view of their playing styles and strategies. Although Cade McNamara led his previous team, the Michigan Wolverines, to their first win in a decade over OSU, he has yet to face them as a Hawkeye. If we go even further back in history, the overall 66-game series between these two teams stands at 48, 15, and 3, with the Buckeyes on top. Their latest 54-10 win in Columbus against the Hawks was the largest margin of victory in the entire series, forcing Iowa to fall to 8-31-1 at Ohio Stadium. All right, even though I am a professional, my brain can only take so much history at a time, so I'll pass it back to Colin and Brady. Class dismissed.
Thanks, Elise, Colin. I feel like I could ace a test on these two schools right now.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not a bubble sheet. I'm not a great test taker, but, she's getting me up to speed with these two schools.
But, Colin, as the Hawks prepare for battle with one of the best teams in the nation, what are the Hawkeyes thinking?
I mean, you said it right there, Brady. One of the best teams in the nation. Iowa's going to have to recognize, and they respect that. They're giving Ohio State their credit, but, even with that, Hawks are eager for this big test.
Just excited that we were able to play in games like this. Not a lot of people, can have the opportunity to play a high-ranked team like this. So we're going in there. We're excited for the opportunity.
Definitely a big opportunity. You don't get too many chances throughout your career to play top 5, top 10 teams too often. So anytime you do, you got to cherish that moment and bring your best.
However, even with their eagerness, this won't be an easy game. This consistently one of the best programs in the country year in and year out. And Iowa knows it, and if they want to pull off this mega upset, they're going to have to do a lot.
It comes down to third down conversions because that's what keeps drives alive. When we get in the red zone, we gotta walk away with points.
We still haven't seen what this team can do for 4 quarters throughout the whole game. Obviously, when you're playing an opponent like this, you're going to need 4 quarters to beat them.
We just try to focus on us. We don't really try to focus on what the media or we don't really try to focus on what the outside world is saying, like they don't got us winning and things like that. We don't really try to focus on that because if we prepare how we supposed to and play how we supposed to with that Iowa edge, then we're going to be just fine.
And you just heard Deshaun there on the outside noise going into this game, social media, talk shows, even people around the area. This is not a game Iowa's expected to win at all. The odds are completely against them, but that would make it all the sweeter if Iowa was able to pull this game off. And let me tell you first, they want to win it bad.
I'm not the type of person that like want to beat the top dogs. I don't want to be with them. I want to beat them. So it's just always a thing for me to show what I got against the best people in the country.
Another opportunity to prove some guys wrong. People tell me I can't do stuff. I like playing good in big games.
And Brady, even though the Hawks might be excited for this game, they're definitely going to have their hands full with this Ohio State team.
Yeah, Colin, you don't get ranked near the top of the nation without having some certified dogs on the roster. I talked with Noah Weiskopf, sports editor for Ohio State's independent student paper, The Lantern, and host of Buckeye Beat on Lantern TV, about some of the players Iowa will see this weekend. Now, one of the biggest storylines surrounding Ohio State this offseason was the amount of returning players that came back for one more year. Very similar to that team up north did last season.
It was really a string of one guy said they wanted to come back, and then that was it. Everyone was coming back. I would say it's similar to what Michigan did last year, right? They were really, really talented and then went to a national championship and won it with all those guys returning. Ohio State, they're young guys who are still sitting behind these people. I mean, they are ready for the challenge this year. And so having them sit another year is going to mean that much more to them in 2025. So this Ohio State team is not only built to go all the way this year, but they're built for success in years to come.
Of course, not everyone is a returner. The Buckeyes landed Quinshawn Judkins from the Ole Miss Rebels in the transfer portal, and pairing him with Travion Henderson has given the Buckeyes a deadly 1-2 punch in the backfield.
They look like the best running back duo in the nation. You really, really rarely see 2 top-tier running backs, especially in college football, want to join forces and want to share a backfield. They don't care about the workload. They both want to win football games, and they knew that those 2 joining forces, they would be able to do just that. And that is what gives them the best chance to have a dominant rushing attack and for the 2 of them to be successful. They're averaging upwards of 10 yards per carry. So, I mean, the offensive line plays a big part in that, but they've just been super dominant.
Judkins isn't the only big-time transfer on the offense. Ohio State brought in veteran quarterback Will Howard from Kansas State this offseason to lead the passing attack.
They know that this is their year for contending. They know that they have what it takes on this roster to go all the way. So their, focal point was to bring in a quarterback that's been in that position before, that won't necessarily, you're not asking him to play hero ball. You're asking him to spread the ball around your weapons. He's been very poised in the pocket. He's been very smart with the ball for the most part. He's, been really able to just distribute the ball to his playmakers, and that's what they wanted.
Now, if Iowa is tight end university, then Ohio State is wide receiver university. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and current rookie Marvin Harrison Jr. are just a few of the names the Buckeyes have made first-round picks in the NFL. This year is no different between Emeka Egbuka and true freshman Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State has NFL guys on the outside.
They are just producing and producing and producing. I'll start, I guess, with Emeka Egbuka, who has been here the longest. He's elected to come back to play another season, to seemingly win the game there at the end of the year and then go on and compete for a national title. But he would have been a first, second round pick in the draft last year. He is more of a slot guy. He runs great routes. He's not one of those super tall receivers that you lob the ball up to. He makes plays in the middle of the field. We saw that against Michigan State. And he's going to be another, top however many pick in this draft. Jeremiah Smith even said he didn't anticipate having this big of a role as a freshman, but he's 18 years old. He's also, just athletically gifted enough to be able to make these plays. So when you have a guy like Emeka in the middle of the field that's finding the soft spot in zones or beating man-to-man, you have Jeremiah Smith who's running downfield, who's I think stands at 6'4", who is a guy that at 18 years old would probably, if he only had to play 1 year in college football, he'd probably be a first-round pick next year.
Ohio State might make the headlines due to their offense, but the defense is no unit to play around with. It all starts up front for the Buckeyes, who have a couple of big-time edge rushers in JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. But they might also be getting a little bit of extra help in the middle of the line this weekend.
Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are the two edge rushers, bookend guys that you're banking on to get home as much as they possibly can. But I keep mentioning NFL draft. Both of those guys will get drafted next year. Tyleik Williams, we'll see. I think that's a pretty key storyline for at least this game to watch. He did not play against Marshall. He was held out with an injury. He was dressed. He was available, but did not see the field. So I am anticipating he will be 100% healthy for Saturday's game against Iowa. He's a disruptor in the middle, interior, so he should be back.
Ohio State wasn't shy about bulking up their defense last offseason either, bringing in safety from Alabama Caleb Downs to bolster the back end of this Buckeye defense.
Caleb Downs, a guy that is not even eligible to go to the draft yet, the transfer from Alabama who led Alabama in tackles last year, he had a huge game against Michigan State. He was flying downhill, making plays in open field. He had a huge game. I'm looking for him especially to continue on that. It's a little bit different whether or not they line him up in the box. I think he plays more like a linebacker. He can make those big hits.
Colin, Iowa will certainly have their hands full with all that blue chip talent the Buckeyes will bring this Saturday.
Yeah, it should be a really tough matchup for the Hawkeyes. And, we keep mentioning Iowa's on the road, but still, a kid captain from the said Family Children's Hospital this week. I've got the story on Week 6 Kid Captain. Hayden Yorich grew up a normal kid. With one older sister, Hayden was always full of energy, looking for a book, extremely funny, but she also has an empathetic side. However, this would flip in a matter of minutes when she was 7 years old.
By Saturday night, she was sleeping 20 of 24 hours of the day, and she had gotten lethargic all week long. She wasn't eating, she wasn't herself. And then by 8 o'clock, the nurse came in and said, "We've sent your labs to the university. It's presenting as a cancer. The ambulance will be here in minutes and they will take you down."
Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a type of cancer in the bone marrow that affects red blood cells. While this process is scary for the family, it's not something they're unfamiliar with.
We know the C word. Hayden's the 9th person in our family to have cancer. So we've watched people pass, and that's exactly where your mind goes, is that I'm going to be burying my 7-year-old child.
But after 2.5 years of fighting, Hayden now gets to enjoy life as normal as she can once again. Hayden's in show choir and one of the smartest kids in her class, but most of all, Hayden is still her empathetic self and caring about those around her. And that's why she wants to go into nursing.
I would like see them or they would see me even out in public and they would just know me, they'd know my story and be able to have a little talk. And so I want to be that for someone. I want to be able to be a safe place on level 11.
The whole experience of being a kid captain is still surreal for Hayden Yorich.
Great story there, Colin, but now it's time to take a look around the Big Ten, but there's just one issue with that.
Yeah, that's right, Brady. Our sports director, AJ Reister, isn't here in the studio. He's currently in Chicago for the basketball Big Ten Media Days.
Yeah, but that is no issue for the former champ. He's determined to take us around the country, so let's send it to AJ in Chicago. AJ, what's going on around the Big Ten this week?
Thanks, guys. I may be in Chicago, but I am still hyped for this weekend slate of Big Ten games. Starting in Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Cornhuskers will host the undefeated Rutgers Scarlet Knights. This impressive offense has been one of the most surprising stories in the Big Ten. A team that finished just one game above 500 a year ago is now top 5 in the conference in rushing, and in big thanks to Kyle Monungai. The senior back has rushed for nearly 600 yards in just 4 games and is averaging over 6 yards per carry. He'll be running into a tough team, though, in Nebraska, where the story has been freshman phenom Dylan Raiola. The 19-year-old has thrown for over 1,200 yards this season and has compiled 9 touchdowns. Last weekend, Raiola threw for 257 yards and a touchdown in the Huskers' 28-10 win over the Purdue Boilermakers. Nebraska is a 6.5-point favorite, and kickoff is set for 3 p.m. on Fox. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, the Minnesota Golden Gophers are set to welcome 11th-ranked USC after nearly taking down 10th-ranked Michigan. Minnesota scored a late touchdown to bring the score back within 3 and attempted an onside kick, and at first looked like they recovered it.
Minnesota's got it!
After review, they said the Gophers were offsides, even though it still looks like they weren't, in my opinion. They will look to bounce back this weekend against a ranked Trojans team that is coming off a win against the Wisconsin Badgers. Despite the turnover issues, Miller Moss was still able to throw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the win. Mason Cobb came with a huge 55-yard pick 6 to seal the deal late in the game. Kickoff is set for 6:30 on the Big Ten Network, and USC is an 8-point favorite. And now for the non-Big Ten game of the week. Down in College Station, the 25th-ranked Aggies of Texas A&M will host the 9th-ranked Tigers of Mizzou. A&M is on a 4-game win streak after dropping their opener to Notre Dame. Their latest win, however, came at the expense of Arkansas, 21-17. On the other side, the Mizzou Tigers are undefeated and coming off a 30-27 victory over Vanderbilt. Quarterback Brady Cook has been having a solid season, throwing for nearly 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also rushing for 4 touchdowns. Kickoff is set for 11 a.m. on ABC, and the Aggies are 2-point favorites in this one. Gentlemen, that's a look around the Big Ten and the nation. What games are you most excited for this weekend?
Thank you, AJ. Now, Colin, there's not a lot of barn burners this week on paper, so I'm going to keep it in the Big Ten. I've got my eye on the undefeated Rutgers taking a trip out to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Cornhuskers. Now, 5-star freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola has looked pretty good there in Nebraska so far this season, but the Scarlet Knights are undefeated, and they've looked pretty good as well.
Yeah, you know, I've liked watching Rutgers, and I got to give you credit for the Nebraska pick, even though they might be our rivals. Dylan Raiola has even surpassed my expectations this year. But for my game of the week, I've got Navy going on the road to play Air Force. Salute to those serving our country. But another team who's really surprised me, Navy's undefeated. And if they can continue that trend, as long as Army does as well, could see an undefeated matchup at the end of the year.
Yeah, Colin, we love a good armed forces battle, but now it's time for predictions, and we have a brand new predictions champion. Elise took down the tyrant AJ with her 38-10 prediction for the Minnesota game, but now the hunter has become the hunted, and everyone on the show today wants to get their hands on that belt.
Oh yeah, Brady, let me tell you, I've got a little teaser for you. I think I got something up my sleeve this week that's going to help me earn that belt.
But first, let's send it back to Joel in the newsroom to kick off predictions.
Thanks, guys. I am back, and I am fired up, ready to prove myself after my disappointing debut on the show a couple weeks ago. I think I have something cooking with my prediction this week, but first, let me get to my Hawkeye highlight. I am looking forward to watching Hawkeye cornerback Jamari Harris on Saturday. If the Hawkeyes want a chance at stopping this talented offense, it will have to come down to the pass rush and the secondary. This is an enormous opportunity for Harris to show the NFL that he can compete with some of the top wide receivers in college football. I think Harris will continue his great play and take advantage of competing against Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith. Now for my game prediction. The Buckeyes haven't played a competitive game all season. And I could list off all the NFL caliber talent on this team, but I would just be reading you the starting lineups. The Hawkeye defense is very good, but the last time they played an offense this talented was in 2022, the last time they played Ohio State. And the Hawkeyes lost that game 54-10. This week, I'm saying the pill carrier, Caleb Johnson, goes for a $150 and 2 touchdowns, and the defense keeps it within reach for 3 quarters. But I think the Iowa passing offense falls short, and the Buckeyes pull away with a comfortable 38-17 win. Elise, I'm vying for that belt. How are you going to defend it?
That's cute. I have my ways, Joel. Don't you worry. For my Hawkeye highlight, I'm going with Jazzy Patterson. I don't think Iowa is confident enough to do much passing against the Ohio State defense, so I actually agree with Joel, saying their best bet is the running game. 2 weeks ago against Minnesota, Patterson ran for 66 yards and brought the Hawkeyes to the red zone several times in the second half. Alongside his buddy Caleb Johnson, I think this could be one of Patterson and Iowa's biggest rushing games of the season. If Patterson continues to play the way he did last game, I think he's in for a big afternoon. Now, unlike AJ, I did my homework 2 weeks ago, so I'm looking to keep what's currently mine. Although we saw some good D and a strong running game from Iowa, I don't think that will be enough to move them to 4-1 this Saturday. If Iowa wants to come close to beating Ohio State, they cannot decide to only show up in the second half. This is a game in which they need to give everything they've got from start to finish, and personally, I just don't think they can do that against this tough of an opponent. No matter how much I love rooting for the underdogs and for upsets, I have Ohio State coming out on top 34-13, giving Iowa their second loss of the season. Even though I have a feeling I'll be keeping the belt, I am curious as to what my good friend AJ has for his predictions.
Now, I may have lost the belt 2 weeks ago, but guys, remember what happened last year. I plan on coming back with a vengeance this weekend. For my player to watch, I've got Cohen Entringer making an impact. He's been getting a lot more reps recently, and I could see Ohio State trying to take advantage of the young corner and him making them pay. As for my game prediction, I do have the Buckeyes beating the Hawks 33-10. This has felt like an L since the schedule came out, but we all remember 2017, so never say never. That's what I have for my prediction. Colin, what do you think will happen this weekend?
Thanks, AJ, and as I said earlier, I think I've got something up my sleeve this week to pull off this win for the belt, but first, for my Hawkeye highlight, I'm going to go with Sebastian Castro this week. He's a guy that I believe can make or break this game for Iowa. Ohio State has some good wide receivers, and we've seen the Iowa defensive backs give up a few huge plays in previous games, and if Castro can limit these and force the Buckeyes to run into linebackers, it could be a close contest. And may I add, Brady, Iowa's defense, the only one in FBS to allow less than 5 red zone appearances from opponents so far this year. Only 3 times opponents have gotten into the red zone against them, so if he does his job, could be looking at a really close game. But now, for my prediction, as I said at the top of the show, again, an Ohio native, grew up constantly surrounded by Ohio State. Everywhere I look, shirts, hats, socks, stickers, bumper stickers on cars. Everyone I knew just constantly telling me, friends, loved ones, teachers, the cashier at the local gas station, everyone's an Ohio State fan. And all they do would constantly remind me how good their program was, how much they won, how they would be always looking for the college football playoff, contending for a national title. They tell me they're going to beat Iowa constantly, day in, day out, that they're better than everyone else. And are we going to stand for that? O-H-I-O? No, no, no! I-O-W-A! I-O-W-A! Give me all the Hawkeyes! 31-24. Hawkeyes are bringing it home. A big upset. Go Iowa! Sorry, got ahead of myself there, but Brady, I think this is the year they pull it off. I gotta catch my breath. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, Colin, an emphatic prediction there from you, but now it's time to take a look at one more person before I give my predictions. I don't think I'll have quite the energy you do, but let's take a look back with Noah to see what he has to say about this matchup.
I'll say that the key player is Emeka Egbuka. I think that Jeremiah Smith stole the highlights from last week. The 2 one-handed catches there at the end of the half. I think Emeka, he is for sure this #1 wide receiver. And I think Jeremiah Smith, his emergence has kind of stolen that a little bit. But Emeka is this #1 guy, the first look all the time. I think that if I was able to slow him or double him, I honestly don't know how big of a difference that'll make. On defense, I'd say, we mentioned the line of scrimmage, but I'll go with Caleb Downs here. He hadn't stuck out really yet in a game, at least from the eye perspective. He hasn't stuck out in a game, but last game you saw, I think he led the team with six tackles as a safety. It was really impressive. So his ability to fly downhill, lay a hit, and then finish that hit, finish that tackle is really impressive. Score prediction, I suck at these. They've never ever been right. So anyone listening to this, don't take it with a grain of salt. My score prediction, I'll go 35-17 Ohio State.
I'm going to be honest, Colin, I think I got a little bit of whiplash going from your very, very confident prediction to Noah's not so confident prediction, but that's all right. For my Hawkeye highlight, I'm going full-on Hawkeye football. Give me the new punter from down under, Reese Dakin, against Minnesota. He put together a master class in booting the ball, punting 5 times and downing 3 of them inside the 20-yard line. The Hawkeyes are going to need to win the field position battle if they hope to pull off this massive, massive upset. That being said, I've got Ohio State winning the game at home 42-10. I think Iowa's rushing game will help them punch in the ball, maybe get a field goal, but the Ohio State weapons will just be too much for the Hawkeyes to overcome. So Colin, I don't have the Hawkeyes winning like you do. I've got a big-time Ohio State victory.
Yeah, I know everyone else picked against the Hawkeyes, but I'm sticking confident with my pick, Brady.
All right, well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you, Noah, Joel, Elise, AJ, and you for tuning in to Before the Kickoff.
Make sure you tune in the Daily Iowan website and YouTube page for all the latest on Hawkeye sports. I'm Colin Carruthers.
And I'm Brady Barron. Have a fantastic football-filled weekend, everybody.